You can walk home.
Do you want to put my coat over your lap? I love you too.
Good evening. From Beth Israel, the West Temple on Triscuit Road in Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome back. Tonight we talk about a subject that maybe you don't want to talk about, a subject that is omnipresent during our current economic times. You'll hear much more about that during our discussion. Before we begin, I have two little things I'd like to say, and that is that the U.S. Census has determined that Cleveland is number one, the poorest city in America. After 10 years, Detroit lost the title. Our percentage of poor in our community is the highest of any big city in the entire nation. The people here tonight are responsible for trying to feed them. There was a story in the paper I read today about a woman who was standing in line, and a reporter came up to her and said, "How you doing? Have you been in line before?" "Yes." "Have you been in line before during COVID?" "Yes." And she said, "It's easier now." And she said she had been in line in the spring. And the reporter said, "Why is it easier now?" And she said, "Well, we're all wearing masks." He said, "Oh, you mean it's easier now because you feel more comfortable, you're not going to get COVID from the person in front of you or behind you?" And she said, "No, when I wear a mask, nobody knows who I am." Tonight, we're going to talk about those people in that line. We have with us to my left Lona Gruber from SCAN, a food pantry, over 20 years, ongoing every other Friday in Berea. And Kristen Warzocha, President, CEO of our Cleveland Food Bank. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen, tell us how long you've been the CEO for the food bank.
I'd be happy to. I've been with the Greater Cleveland Food Bank for 20 years now, and I've served in the role of President and CEO for the last 6 years. It's a real privilege.
And President and CEO, that's not President and CEO of a big corporation, New York Stock Exchange. It's the President and CEO of a charity.
Correct.
Tell us how you perceive your role as the head of the organization.
My role as President and CEO means that ultimately I'm accountable for the work that we do for our community, for the support that we provide to our 1,000 program partners like SCAN and Lona, and ultimately the service that's provided to our clients. I do that with an extraordinary team of colleagues, 21,000 volunteers a year that help us, as well as a very dedicated board of directors made up of community leaders and volunteers who help provide strategic direction to the organization and champions for our work.
So I assume your kind of charity could not exist without partners on both sides, on the money side and on the distribution side. Is that fair?
Absolutely, that's the
So
case.
let's talk about the money side, then we'll talk about Lona and the distribution side.
All right.
What is the so-called annual budget for your company?
Yep. Typically, the budget went up last year because of the pandemic. Our operating budget is between $20 and $25 million. With that, we distribute more than $80 million worth of food a year. And this past year, that food was received by more than 400,000 people across Northeast Ohio. We run a community food distribution center, 127,000 square foot facility on the east side of Cleveland in the Collinwood Yards neighborhood. There we solicit donations from the food industry, as well as work with other partners to bring in healthy food and to get it out to our network of partner agencies.
And the contributors to the $25 million that you need, is it mostly local?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And is it what I'll call the retail, the $1 and the $5 tear off of Heinen's, or more likely to be bigger companies writing you a check?
You know, we receive and are grateful for gifts at every level. We have corporate donors and foundation donors, but we also have lots and lots of individuals who write checks, make gifts online, or tear off a coupon in the checkout aisle. And all of those dollars help us provide food to our partner agencies and to the clients that they serve.
And tell us how your relationship works with Lona. Well, let's start with this. How many food pantries do you distribute to?
We have 1,000 programmatic partners
1,000.
at approximately 450 different locations.
And your
So-
scope is just the city or the whole county or even broader than that?
We provide food in 6 counties. So all the way east to the Pennsylvania line in Ashtabula County, as well as Lake and Geauga, Cuyahoga, and then south towards Mansfield. We serve Ashland and Richland counties. Now, the largest number of pantries and the largest population is without a doubt in Cuyahoga County. And so that is where the majority of the food is distributed. But we do make food available across that entire service area. We are so grateful to our partners. Of our 1,000 programmatic partners, about 70% are run entirely by volunteers with no paid staff. And these are folks who are heroes in their community, who give of themselves, who put in an extraordinary amount of time to start those agencies, to keep them going, and to make sure that their neighbors are fed. And Lona is chief amongst them.
So Lona, you have 20 years of running your food pantry, correct?
More than that.
More than that. How many people do you see on a Friday afternoon?
That depends. If it's Friday afternoon, I would say that we have 35 to 40 people lined up. Sometime now, starting now, with summertime, it's going to be higher because the kids are home from school and the parents don't have money to go buy food for them. So I increased the amount of food that goes out during this time because I don't want any kid to starve on my account.
And do you see returnees, people that come over and over and over again?
Yes. What I'm seeing more of, and I was shocked by it when I started this, was that the people who were receiving the food had to do it because they were hungry. They didn't have jobs. They were unemployed, and they could not get jobs. And it really bothers me a lot that we've got a society that will not bend and help those folks who need a job.
So for both of you, is there a minimum income level required to say, hey, I'd like to come in and get a bag of food?
Not in my, I don't believe in that. I'm sorry.
And Kristen?
Yes, so the food bank provides food to our partner agencies and prioritizes folks who make up to 200% of the poverty level. And so 200% of poverty, to give you an idea, is about $42,000 or $43,000 a year for a family of 3. Now, the majority of the folks who end up turning to one of our partner agencies for help are living below poverty. But the fact is, we often see people who are above poverty. You know, they might be at 150%, but there's an emergency, there's a crisis, the car breaks down, they have to fix the car to get to work, they have a home repair that needs to be made, and they don't have the savings, and so end up, you know, putting that grocery budget towards another family need, and very quickly finding themselves in need of food.
So is it the mission for the food bank to some miracle not have lines any longer on a weekly basis?
The mission of the food bank is to ensure that everyone in our community has the nutritious food they need every day. And we do that in a variety of ways. I mean, one way that we do that is by trying to make sure that when someone in need goes to SCAN or goes to one of our other partner agencies, there is healthy food available. But the other way that we do this, and this is something that we have really put a lot of effort into in the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years, is helping people apply for benefits that they're eligible for. Because a program like food stamps or SNAP is really our country's first line of defense in the fight against hunger. And if you are eligible for SNAP and you apply for SNAP and get granted the benefit, you're going to get a card that you can take to the grocery store and buy some groceries there. And it won't take you through the entire month. It absolutely will not. But it could provide a couple weeks of stability. And that stability is incredibly helpful for people. We also help people apply for Medicaid, and we connect them to other program partners because we know that hunger is often a symptom of another problem. As Lona said, it's an employment challenge, right? Until that person gets back to work, they will be in need of food. And so the way to help them be food secure is to help connect them to a job. And so we'll connect them to an employment partner or a housing partner or a healthcare partner because employment and housing and health are the three most frequent contributors to food insecurity.
And do you find that there ebbs and flows to people in need? I mean, COVID maybe is an extraordinary entity in and of itself, but have there been times when you thought, wow, the numbers are going down? Has that happened for both of you?
Do you want to take that one or you want me to take that one?
No, I think I'm more getting that type of thing than she is.
Okay.
My line starts at the front door of my pantry, whatever. And when I go to open the door, they want to come in.
Mm-hmm.
I can't allow that, because if I do, they're going to walk in, look around all the shelves, and my son will have a fucking fit because I let them come in and get the food. The ruling is that they come to the door, they show their paperwork, that they're legitimate. I ask them to go back into the line, they get their food, and they go home. Now, those same people come back.
The same day?
No, not the same day. I can't help them the same day. The next month or so, they will come back because they need help. And I hate it when I overhear people, my friends, quote unquote, who make comments about the people that line up for food. So I blew up there a few weeks ago, and told them, I said, I love you dearly, you're my friends, but do not assume that what you are saying is correct, because you're wrong. They are in line because they have to be, not because they want to be. And they walked away with that, thinking, damn, she's right.
We've known you
Guess
here a long
what,
time.
guys?
We know your interest in this effort is 150%. And Kristen, do you think there have been times when it hasn't been as dire as it is now?
I do, actually. I do. So when we look at the data, of the number of clients who are being served by our partner agencies, and I look back over the last 20 years that I've been at the food bank, it's directly tied to what's happening in the economy. There's no doubt about it. I still remember the last recession and how the lines got longer and how more food was required. And that lasted, the recession was 2008, 2009, 2010. But the fact is, we were still serving more people 5 or 6 years after that. People who had been working before the recession did go back to work. Unemployment came back down, but a lot of times they went back to lower paying jobs. At the same time, the number of seniors in our population across the country is growing. People are living longer, they're trying to age at home, they're running out of savings, and they're running out of food. And so, pardon me?
And they don't have jobs.
And right, and in some cases they're too old to work, right? We're getting calls from folks in their 80s and sometimes 90s who've outlived their savings. Mm-hmm. So, but I'll tell you, it was just starting to feel a little bit better. I mean, I would say 2017, 2018, I mean, we're still providing a lot of food, but it started to feel like things had eased up a little bit, and then came the pandemic, and the numbers just absolutely skyrocketed again, well beyond the recession.
I would imagine you get more than I do in terms of the women and the men, whatever. I get a gradually up of men and women. Most of the men cannot find jobs. And I have to be honest with you, I will not address that like everything else. I can't do that. I just cannot do it because I don't have the time and I don't know what they want. And I encourage them to go downtown or go somewhere and talk to somebody about getting a job. Well, how long can you feed us, Miss Gruber? I said, as long as I have breath, I'll feed you. But I want you to start to think about what you are going to do 6 months from now.
And that's the same thing I would ask you, Kristen. You can't be providing food to people and even attempt to ignore their underlying concerns, worries that they have. I don't think you can speak for every single employee, but how does your agency deal with the fact that these are people who, no matter how good the economy is doing, are still left behind?
There are people who are left behind. There's no doubt about it. And so a number of years ago, we created an outreach team to be out in the community at our partner agencies, connecting clients in need of food with both benefits and other services. Over time, we opened a help center so that people in need of food can call a number, and we will refer them to an agency in their neighborhood. But we'll also talk to them about anything else that we can provide or connect them to. So that could, again, be helping them apply for SNAP. It could be connecting them to an employment agency. And the nice thing about the help center, right, is that it's over the phone. People can call at their convenience. We're open Monday through Friday. We've got folks on the phones all day, every day. And we can make these referrals and try to connect someone directly to another agency. Because the fact is, in the short term, how we end hunger is we make sure people have food. And that's what Lona is doing on the front lines every day. In the long term, how we end hunger is either through advocacy, a significant change in government programs, right, or support, or through helping people address the underlying issues so that they no longer have to be waiting in line for food. And so we try to do all of those things.
And do you have involvement with political entities like Cuyahoga County or state of Ohio or even city of Cleveland? Describe those relationships, please.
Sure. We are a nonpartisan organization as a 501c3, but we do advocate to protect and to expand programs that support our partners and support our clients. We do have relationships with a number of different entities. As an example, with Cuyahoga County. We can help people apply for a public benefit like Medicaid or SNAP, but we can't approve the benefit. So we can submit the application into the system at the county, but the county's got to actually interview the client to make sure they're eligible and approve the benefit. And so we work really closely trying to make sure that that program works well for our clients and that as many income eligible as clients as possible who apply are able to access that benefit. We also get support from the county. Frankly, we recently got an investment from Cuyahoga County. They had some CARES Act dollars left over from the federal government that need to be spent by September 31st. And so we were able to buy a number of truckloads of food, which we're making available to our partner agencies at no cost.
When?
Now. The email just went out, Lona.
Gotcha.
Right away. Call tomorrow. Go online.
All right, believe me, I will.
Good. It is family-friendly, child-friendly products, so it's things like macaroni and cheese, applesauce. I think we have chicken nuggets, because we know that a lot of kids are learning virtually, which means they don't have access to free and reduced price breakfast and lunch at school, which is a big problem, and they're about to go on holiday break.
Right.
And so they're going to have even less access. And holidays are a stressful time for families. And so, so we do have partnerships with public entities, but we are nonpartisan, which is important.
I have news for you, my dear. You're not leaving tonight until you give me a business card that says you will come to my pantry next week.
One wants some of that free product.
They all right, man.
Tell
I'm
me
not
about,
ashamed to ask for it either.
tell me whether you work with the school districts plural. How does that work?
We do. We work with a lot of partners who serve children in need. When I talk about our programmatic partners, in addition to food pantries like the program that Lona runs and leads, we also have a number of partner sites and programs where we provide after-school meals as well as summer meals. We have an on-site production kitchen at the food bank where we make up to 8,000 meals a day. Those meals go to senior programs, Senior Meals on Wheels, as well as children's programs and others. And so right now, because so many schools are closed, we've had to be real creative about how we get meals out. So as an example, we're providing grab-and-go meals at Cleveland Public Libraries for kids in need. We work with the Boys and Girls Clubs to provide after-school meals, and lots of other partners as well that serve children. Some of those after-school programs are actually at school locations as well.
So one of the questions that I told you I was going to ask, and I didn't know where I was going to put it, I'm just going to ask it now.
Okay.
And that is, in any organization of your size, there are your strengths that you have to maintain, and then there's maybe a weak link that needs attention. As you go through your day and your week and your month, is it easy to identify these are the things we really do well, and these are the things that I've got to find time to get to do better?
Absolutely. I think that's the case in any organization, big or small. It's interesting because there are things that I think areas of opportunity that I've seen our organization and our team really step into in a wonderful way this year. Typically one of the things I claim to be a strength that is also can be a weakness is we're planners. We are very committed to our strategic plan. We put a 3-year plan down on paper. We set goals. We hold ourselves accountable to those goals. We love to use data. Sometimes when you've got a group that's really strategic and planners who loves data, it can take a little while to get a decision made. Right? We want to gather all the facts first.
Yes, indeed you do.
Lona knows we love data. This year we have not had, we haven't had the luxury of time. We've had to make a lot of decisions very, very quickly, and realize that we're going to make.
You're not alone in doing that, by the way.
Well, yeah, a lot of organizations have, right? And so we've done it. We've made decisions quickly, big decisions quickly, and frankly, it served us well, and it served the community well.
So, speaking for the people who contribute, you have competition, I assume, with Salvation Army this time of the year, United Way all year. How do you, it's a competition with a small c? Is it we're independent from all of them? How do you work your way through all of that?
So honestly, they're all our partners. They're all our partners, and I don't see it as competition. We live in an incredibly generous community. And some folks choose to support the food bank, and some folks choose to support the Salvation Army. And I say thank you to donors who support either one. Because the fact is, we provide the Salvation Army with food. They're an important partner. We couldn't do what we do if we didn't have great partnership with the Salvation Army. We couldn't do what we do if we didn't have a great partnership with SCAN. And so I'm grateful to donors who support the food bank, but also who support any one of our partner agencies across our network.
So,
Yep.
when both, this is a question for both of you. Here you are providing sustenance to people who don't have, and we're sitting in a sanctuary, a holy place. It sounds biblical, frankly, to think that there are people like the two of you who take it upon yourselves to care in an overwhelming fashion that others have enough to eat. So to both of you, is it overwhelming sometimes, Lona?
Well, I can only tell you, Yes,
Yes.
it can be only because, like her, we have a big heart. And we don't like it when people go hungry. I don't like it when people go hungry, and I don't think you do either. So you put your left foot out really, really quick to see what the needs are in that line. And my staff has a hard time understanding that when I leave my office to go out and talk to the people in line, that's what I'm doing. Well, why do you have to do that? I need to know what their needs are. I'm not going to give them a box of spaghetti or a box of soup. What would you like to feed your family, especially when the kids are home from school? I don't think it's fair to give them just because I have it to give. I don't treat people that way. I never have and never will. My mother will come down from heaven, wherever she is, and spank the heck out of me. Believe me, she would. And he's going to back me up, too.
And you, Kristen? I mean, is it overwhelming at times, the burden that you've placed
I
upon
think
your
it
own
is.
shoulders?
You know, I consider it a privilege to do this sort of work for a living. You know, to have a career in the nonprofit sector where I get to go to work and help people every day. I really consider it a privilege. I will say that there are times where there are not enough hours in the day. That has particularly been the case this year, simply because of the skyrocketing need and the challenges that go along with it. You know, the need to find new ways to provide food, where we can serve more people and more partners and yet make sure everybody is safe. You know, a lot of our partners have gone to drive-through distribution models. We have started a drive-through distribution to fill gaps in service. And the fact is, it's just, you know, we served collectively with our partners 100,000 more people this year than we did last year. It's just been incredible. And I think the year ahead is going to be just as busy.
So,
I know it is.
Yeah.
so I know we're neighbors. I know when you leave in the morning. 10 minutes to 7, you're out the driveway. Are you home by
I said I
7?
would go out at 20 minutes to 7.
You got it.
Then he won't know what you're doing.
You know, it's we've had a lot of work to do this year, so I certainly, you know, I've put in some extra hours, and a lot of my teammates have, and I know that a lot of our partner agencies have as well. It just, at this point, it's what needs to be done, and so we do it.
So,
That's what's hard for people like yourselves who don't grasp what it means to do what she does and what I do.
well, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
That's why we're here tonight, to let everybody know.
Well, fortunately for me, I've raised 2 very fine young men. One of which is sitting over there with that smirk on his face. But he's been a big help to me. Both of my sons have. But it's important to me, and I believe you are the same bolt of cloth that I am, that we believe in honoring the people we serve. They do not want to be in that line. They do not want to admit that they have to wait in line to get food. And I'm going to tell you something. I will not treat them any way than I would treat you if you were in line for food. I don't believe in it. I think it's wrong, and I won't do it. And I trained my staff, and I fired a couple of people because I overheard them talking to people in line. I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got out of my desk, went outside. This was somebody said, "You're fired. You leave now."
Lona may be little, but she be fierce. That's
don't
what I
know
love
about- I
about
don't know
this
about all
lady.
that.
On behalf of her clients.
But I know that people have feelings,
Yes, absolutely.
and I will not let anyone step on those feelings. And they stand in line because they have to, not because they want to.
So let me ask both of you this. Somebody drops off a check for $1,000.
Mhm.
Mhm.
How do you generally spend that $1,000?
Me or her?
I'll ask both of you. I'm asking you first.
All right, I got the $1,000.
Yes.
Do you go buy food with it? What do you do with $1,000?
I'm gonna buy toilet paper. Gotcha. I'm gonna buy paper towels. I'm gonna buy spaghetti. I'm gonna buy hamburger meat. I'm gonna buy da-da-da-da until I run out of what I was given.
And where do you make your purchases?
Usually Giant Eagle, one of those stores that I've got a relationship with, that I live nearby. And the guys in the stores that I train, that I go to, here comes Lona. Here, Lona, this is all for you. I've trained them. I'm not stupid, I just look stupid. But I think it's important that you involve the community in which you and that there are problems out there that need to be addressed. And there are people among me and my friend like her who have taken that on because I don't believe in leaving people in line because they're hungry. They're hungry because they have to be. I've talked to some of the guys in line. I'm making my point to do that, especially when they're new. And one guy has been without a job for 6 friggin' months. That nobody will hire him. Now you tell me why.
And Kristen,
So, in light of that, I feed him more than I feed the next guy.
So Kristen, what happens when somebody walks into the door and says, here's $1,000? How does your company spend that money?
We thank them profusely, first and foremost.
Yes.
And then we use it to bring food in and to distribute food to the community. So, as an example, 50% of the food that's distributed by the food bank is donated, often by members of the food industry. They may have a surplus item that for some reason they can't sell. They might have an item with a packaging error. The food's perfectly good, but there's a misprint on the label, or it's seasonal product. So, right around now, we're getting things left over from Thanksgiving and Halloween, right, with their packaging, as they clear the shelves and make room for Christmas and the other holidays that are coming up. Or for some reason, it's getting very near its shelf date. Those items are donated, but it still may cost us money to bring them in. So, we might find out that there is a truckload of grapefruit available in Texas. And I remember this happening. There'd been a hailstorm. And so there was all this grapefruit in Texas that had brown splotches on the outside. Do you remember this grapefruit? Brown splotches on the outside of the grapefruit. The grapefruit inside was perfect. It was delicious, right? But the it didn't look right, and so they couldn't sell it. We paid for the transportation to bring that truckload of grapefruit here. Ultimately it was pennies on the pound, and we were able to provide all of those grapefruits to our partner agencies.
Wow.
But that's the sort of way we can stretch a dollar.
And the program that I've been reading about, the federal program, was called Farmers to Families.
Yes.
Where we had farmers who had grapefruits and peaches that they just couldn't deal with. Was that a benefit to you guys?
Mm-hmm. Did you get any of those boxes, Lona? No?
They could have come when we're not open, too.
Oh, yeah.
See, we're not open 24/7.
Right. So, absolutely we did. Those boxes, that program was started very quickly to support farmers who were turning produce under because they didn't have restaurants and schools to sell to.
Yes.
And so the federal government bought it from vendors who packaged it in assorted boxes and made it available to all sorts of nonprofits, frankly, for distribution to people. We were coordinating at the high point of that program about 20,000 boxes a week. We were making them available to our partner agencies, coordinating the delivery, if we could make the delivery work, and also distributing them through our weekly distribution in the Muni lot, the Cleveland Municipal Parking Lot, where we serve a couple thousand families every week.
So,
But here's the problem with that whole thing. She hasn't given me one thing. She didn't know I existed. That's not her fault. Now she knows. And perhaps down the road a piece, we can share and contribute and that type of thing. I want to build that up because my pantry is growing. And I'm little, and I come out there and these guys look at me when I tell them this is it. You're not getting any more because we don't have any more.
I know you exist, Lona. That's for sure.
Is a food donation better than a dollar donation? Or the other way around?
We encourage folks to give money,
Yeah.
right? Because dollars give us flexibility.
Mhm.
You know, somebody can go buy food at the store to donate, and they're going to pay retail prices. If they make a donation to the food bank or to one of our partner agencies, we can buy exactly what we need, and we could buy it in bulk.
Yeah.
And less expensively. Or we can use it to bring in a food donation from another part of the country, or to pick it up locally even, and stretch that dollar even further.
So let's talk about the overall business of feeding people and taking care of their sustenance. I was thinking about the need for creativity. And as the CEO, the number one person in charge, how do you figure out even who to turn to maybe give you more creative ideas of how to make things work better?
You know, we get a lot of support. We try to hire smart people who are passionate about our work and who are creative. But we also have a lot of volunteer committees. In addition to our board, which is made up of community leaders who are all volunteers, we've got a number of really important committees. We've got an agency services committee, agency programs committee made up of partner agencies and program partners. And so they can keep us up to date on what we can do to serve them better, what sort of things that we can provide to make their lives easier. It's constant feedback, and we work with them to be creative. Sometimes we do brainstorming with that group. We've got an external affairs committee who helps us be creative when it comes to fundraising and marketing and get our message out. And we've got a lot of other volunteer committees as well that bring in groups of people who've got specific skill sets and knowledge to help us operate at our best and make sure we're always looking to do things differently and better, because continuous improvement is really critical when you're doing work that's as important as this.
I think what my secret, my key is, I've made a connection. I didn't have it before I walked in here. And hopefully we'll work together, and maybe I can help her and she can help me. I also am blessed with 2 sons, one of whom is over there. And he is very careful about what we give away, what we throw away. And if it's no good, he throws it out. He doesn't ask me, he just does it. Because he knows I don't give my clients bad food. Why should I?
Right.
I had one person, I didn't realize this was years ago. I went out and made sure that they had their food. But as I looked at it, I said, this will not do, I'm sorry. I took it away and threw it away. And the woman came up to me and said, why'd you do that? It's because you deserve better. She burst into tears.
Mm.
Because she did deserve better.
Mm-hmm.
All of us deserve a decent meal. So I threw it away, sent one of my staff to the grocery store to buy stuff, something rarely that I do, because I don't have that kind of money. But I wanted that person to get what she deserved, that's all.
Very nice.
It's no skin off my back.
So when we talk about 20 years, all your years in community service, nonprofit, at some point in time, did that become your ambition to be a nonprofit, or are you in nonprofit because the opportunity was presented?
In my case, the opportunity was presented and I grabbed it.
And Kristen?
I came to Cleveland to go to John Carroll. I had grown up doing a lot of volunteer work, became very involved in a service organization at John Carroll, and came to realize through some of the nonprofits I had the opportunity to volunteer for and interact with that I wanted to spend my career in the nonprofit sector. And so actively looked for a position in the nonprofit sector when I graduated from college, and was thrilled when I got my first part-time temporary position that allowed me to serve people for a living.
Makes you feel kind of good, doesn't it?
Yep, sure does.
And are there people that mentored you still within your scope?
Absolutely. I have benefited from a number of mentors over time that I'm still in touch with. My first boss, who hired me right out of college for that part-time temporary position, is still a dear friend and someone I keep in touch with. Other people I've worked with over time, as well as some volunteers that have really impressed me, that I turn to for advice or guidance when I've got a really tough decision to make.
And is there, at this point in your career, for both of you, let's start with you first, Kristen, are you already trying to mentor people to follow in your footsteps?
Absolutely. You know, you need to be. You need to be helping the people around you grow in lots of different ways. Because I think for any organization to be successful, you need a whole team of leaders in various areas. And so, you know, I'm lucky that we've got a really talented team.
And what's more important when you're in front of a group of people and you're trying to fundraise? Is it the information that you have for them, or is it the presentation of the information? Which one of those two is more important, do you think?
You know, I think there are two things that are important. We love data. I know Lona loves data. I mean, I can tell you that Lona distributed 20 tons of food last year.
Wow.
It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. 20 tons, Lona.
I stole it.
Stop it. But people give to people. And so, you know, being connected to clients and being able to share their stories and help donors and community members understand why there's so much need in our community, why people end up coming to the food bank or one of our partner agencies for food is equally as important.
But it seems though someone who's not involved on a day-to-day basis would be awful disappointed at the end of the day to leave work and see that line of people there every day. Or even while you're at work to think, I'm working 80 hours a week and we're doing everything we can and it doesn't look like we're making much progress. So are you on the cusp of overwhelming disappointment at times? Or how do you maintain not thinking, oh my gosh, I can't get all this done?
That's human nature.
Yeah.
There's human nature. We can't help it. I speak for you if I can. That they stand in line and we can't make them get out of line or
Right.
take the food or whatever it is.
Right, that's my point.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
even
we
on
let
your
them
small
go.
scale and your big scale, as hard as you work and as good as you both are, there's still a line.
You know, I will tell you that I try very hard to see the glass as half full. You know, every Thursday when our team's down in the Muni lot, and often I'm down in the Muni lot on Thursdays, and we have a line that goes for miles of people in their cars and
Miles.
Miles. You know, I think on one hand, it is heartbreaking that we have a line that is miles long. It is absolutely heartbreaking. And how many of these people need to be here, and how many folks are turning to us for the very first time. On the other hand, thank God we're here. Thank God we're here, and we've got food available to serve people in need. And thank God Lona's doing what she's doing out at SCAN, and all of our other partners are doing the same.
Same to you.
And so, you know, I know that we live in a generous community. We've got tens of thousands of volunteers who help us. We've got so many donors who care to make a difference, to support our work. And that makes me enormously grateful.
So, do you both meet people who lack your empathy?
Who what, lack it?
That lack the empathy that you two carry?
I don't think they know what that is. The
But some
people that I'm
people-
talking about who don't understand what we're doing, the very first time that light went on back there, and somebody asked me at Temple, what do you turn that light on for? Because we give food away. Why? So I tell school right outside, we do it because people need the food, first of all. You mean we have people in this temple that need that help? I said, yeah. They're no different from anybody else. Oh, I didn't know that. I said, well, now you do. The following month, I come to the pantry, come to here, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there from that unknown person who realized, hey, I better get on the stick and do something. And I don't care that it works that way because now she's been doing it all along. It's wonderful. But you have to explain to people in a patient way that there are people out there that don't know what's going on, and once you explain it to them, they're hopping on board as quick as they can. And I think it's important as a parent, I have to educate my children, and I do that by putting them to work. And then get up and leave. See, he's getting ready to leave.
And
Give me the car
Kristen,
keys.
do you deal with people who, even though you try to talk with them, don't have the empathy for what you do?
Not often. You know, the
Different.
majority of the people that I have the pleasure of dealing with are folks who want to do something to help. And so, you know, I consider that a highlight of my role. Every once in a while, out in the community or on social media, right? When there's an article about the SNAP program, for example, you know, I see or hear comments from folks who are misinformed, or, you know, who don't fully understand,
Right. A lot of them don't.
yeah, why this is an issue. And so we try to raise awareness of that. But I will say, you know, I'm really lucky to work with a lot of extraordinary people.
It seems like the work that both of you do is easy to define in the business world as you're in the relationship business. It's no different than any other business. The way you both have explained it this evening is we have relationships on both sides here. Incoming, outgoing, outgoing, incoming. And that sounds like the work that a CEO does in any business, is maintain relationships. Is that fair?
Mhm.
It's fair.
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
Yeah, and have an ever increasing number of potential relationships. Do you spend a lot of your time looking for more sources, or are you just so busy with what you have already going?
Thank
Well-
God the sources come to us.
Yeah, sometimes they do. Sometimes they do, especially right now. I mean, a lot of folks are wanting to help and reaching out
Summertime, when the kids are home.
about
from
how they
school.
want to help.
Yeah.
But I think there's a balance, right? I mean, over time,
Yeah.
over time, you know, donors pass away, for example.
Mhm.
And so we always need to make sure that we're spreading the word and educating more people who may want to help. So I think it's a balancing act, making sure we're stewarding and being supportive of the partners we already have, but also looking for new partners who can help us fill gaps, whether that's you know, gaps in resources or whether it's gaps in service. You know, sometimes we're looking to new neighborhoods where there is unmet need to try to find a community partner who can serve that community.
And let's change to today, to March 17th, 2020, to today, 12/9/2020. We have been in this apparently ever-increasing volume of people losing work, not going back to work, becoming very, very, very seriously ill. I'm just guessing that when the statistical analysis is done, this will be an overwhelming year for both of you.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that the statistics are there's 10 million jobs that haven't been refilled, and all the people working in restaurants, et cetera, the next month, if they haven't already been laid off, they're going to be laid off.
Yep.
So is your agency and your agency, are you prepared for that continued onslaught of more and more people?
I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, both of us will know that we've been hit hard through no fault of the people hitting us. They are out of jobs. Their people are hungry. The kids are out of school. Their children are hungry. Now is enough time for that. So I just cut that all off and say, oh, well, and I give them the food. It doesn't do me any good to hold the food back. I won't do that. The only time it's bad is when he goes through and says, and he does like this. He throws it away. Yeah, no good, no good, no good. And I'm grateful for that because he knows I will not give people poor food.
And Kristen, what do you think about how overwhelming this year has been and may get worse?
So we distributed at the food bank 9 million more pounds of food in this past fiscal year, which ended September 30th, than we did the previous year. We used to think a big year-over-year increase was 1 million pounds,
How much? 1 million pounds.
right? And we distributed 9 million more pounds. So the increase in distribution has been extraordinary. The need has been extraordinary. I mean, as I said, 100,000 more people than had been served previously. When this first hit, I think I was a little naive. Everyone kept talking about this curve. There was going to be a curve when it came to the pandemic and the number of cases. And I kind of thought at the very beginning that this was going to be, a couple months, that we'd have this curve too. But it didn't take long to realize that, we weren't running a sprint, we were running a marathon. And now we are aware, and we believe, that we will be distributing food at this same high level through all of 2021 and possibly longer.
Especially summertime. That's
Yeah,
part
and
of it.
so we are planning accordingly
Is
to
it-
make sure we've got food available for that period.
So is it fair to, or are you able to define that the demographics have changed? That it used to be a certain group of people and now it looks like people that are different, either middle class or, can you observe that? And do you both see it?
Mm-hmm.
You do.
Absolutely. There are
Yeah.
folks who've always struggled who are still struggling, and in some cases struggling more, right? Their low wage job had hours cut.
And they said they won't ask for help. They're too proud.
Right. And there are also people who are absolutely in need for the first time. We know this. They report this to us. Who find it very hard to come for help. It's like the woman you read about in the article who was happy to be wearing a mask. I don't want anyone to be embarrassed
No.
when they come for help. They shouldn't be embarrassed when they come for help because this is what we're here for, right? And a whole lot of people are in that spot right now. We had a donor and volunteer comment recently. He was watching some of the news coverage about our muni lot distribution, and he said he just couldn't believe how many minivans there were in line.
Yep.
And I've seen minivans my whole career, but there are more minivans now, and it's because a lot of folks have been affected by this virus. There are moms who can't work because they've got kids who are learning virtually, right? And so kids being out of school and not having access to free and reduced price lunches, or kids being out of school, meaning that a parent has to be home and can't be working, really puts an enormous strain on the family. I mean, child hunger in families with kids under 12, according to the Brookings Institute and some new research, has tripled since the recession because of this pandemic. And so, we're seeing a lot of families with kids that
And-
haven't needed help before.
And on the positive side, were you the recipient of any of the stimulus package money that came out in the spring?
Yes, we got some dollars then from the county that actually helped us provide more bags of food and ramp up our distribution of food through our Backpack for Kids program. And those dollars have also helped make some of these programs, like the Farm to Families program, that box program we talked about,
Yes.
have helped make programs like that possible. So we've also gotten food, which we've been able to make available to partners and to clients.
So I have a politically incorrect question to ask that maybe you will fend off, I don't know. But when you're sitting in the muni lot and you look north across the shoreway and you see First Energy and you realize they're paying $100 million to call Cleveland Brown Stadium First Energy Stadium, $100 million. Do you just wonder what some of that money might do to help you guys out?
No. I mean, honestly, when we're in the muni lot, we're so busy, we're not looking across the street. We're
Now,
looking at the
I'll tell you
line.
what we could do, we could run across the street.
But do you understand my point?
I do understand your point. I try not to judge. We are lucky to get extraordinary support from the community, from corporate partners, from foundations. We seek out gifts from all sorts of corporate partners, and particularly this year, many of them have been generous to us. First Energy has also supported the food bank in the past.
So, I have a couple questions I've written down in conclusion. When you think about the future, let's try to think past the holiday season, maybe past the late spring, summer, where we have some reasonable sighting in the end of the tunnel of normalcy. Are you going to have an ability to continue to maintain your passion for what you do?
Lona?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's in my blood.
And what about you, Kristen?
My mother is floating around up there. Lona, you have a job to do. And you do it. And you raise your children to do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's good work. It's important work all the time. Some point, folks will be able to take a little time off, I hope. But
Yeah, I think so.
but the work never stops. Even when there's a vaccine out and a lot of people have received it, I think it's going to take a while for the economy to come back. At least that's what we learned in the last recession. It took
Yeah, I think
years
so.
after the recession was over.
Mhm.
And so I think that will be the case again this year and this time, pardon me. And we need to be ready for it and be grateful that we're in a position where we can help.
I'm
And where I
guessing,
live, see, the difference is the area that I serve, all of this is new to them.
Mhm.
They're not used to having to stand in line to get food. And a lot of the kids and their kids in that line that don't understand that they have to wait in line, they will be helped in a normal way, but they will have to take their turn. I had one man standing in line with his wife. First time they were there, I came outside to see how things were. That's my job. And he lit into me with all four, called me every name in the book.
Hmm.
And I went over to him, and this guy is 6'2", and here I come, and I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "Could I see you, please, at the end of the line?" He said, "Well," I said, "because I want to talk to you." I said, "First of all, I don't like to be talked to the way you talk to me. I don't talk to people that way, and I appreciate that you don't. I understand that you have feelings that you are showing, and I understand them. You've never done this before, and maybe you're embarrassed, but you have nothing, absolutely nothing, to be ashamed of. That's why we're here, to help you. You're going to turn it around and help us, aren't you?" I said, "Well, I've got to go back to work now." I said, "Take it easy. He has not missed a day that we've been open, and he wants to help." Wow. It was just wonderful. But I didn't jump all over him. He was hurt. And he needs to understand that there are people out there that need help. He was one of them. He is no longer. In fact, I don't think he's taken anything from us for the last couple of months. But he's there every daggone time, giving me a hand, and by George, I take it. I ain't bashful about taking the help I need.
So Kristen, tell everybody who's watching, what's the best thing for them to do to help your agency?
Well, there are lots of ways to help, right? Financial contributions certainly help. Volunteerism is critical. One of the challenges this year has been that the food bank relies on 20,000 volunteers a year. Who help
20,000.
20,000, yes, who help sort and repackage donated food in our warehouse. They help make meals in our kitchen. and many times we get volunteers from corporate groups or school groups. Well, corporations aren't gathering, schools are not in session, and so when the pandemic first started, we had 1,400 volunteers cancel in 2 weeks.
Say that again?
1,400 volunteers canceled
Wow.
in 2 weeks. And we knew that we had food to distribute, more food than ever to distribute, without our volunteer corps, which was terrifying at the time, frankly. We work with an association, the Ohio Association of Food Banks. We had an emergency meeting because we were not the only food bank in our state with this problem. Emergency meeting on a Sunday morning, and we asked the governor to send in the National Guard. And sure enough, within days, he deployed the National Guard to help at food banks across our state. We still have National Guard soldiers who are stationed at our food bank volunteering, which is wonderful, and frankly, filling in and supplementing our staff
I can see that.
to help meet the expanded need. But we also need volunteers back. And so we have reorganized projects so that volunteers can be safely 6 feet apart, wearing masks, helping us pack meals of all sorts. And we need the help, and we're going to need the help through the winter
Restocking
ahead.
shelves, they can do that too.
And they can stock shelves at Lona's place and also help at our partner agencies. So volunteering is a wonderful service, and folks can go to our website if they want to learn more about that, or call Lona if they want to help at SCAN. And we also, we need help with advocacy.
Yeah.
There are what the federal and state and even county government decides to do has an enormous impact on residents and on our clients. Whether the food stamp program is protected or has cuts. How these federal food programs like the Farm to Families program work. And so we have a whole long list of folks who are willing to help us with advocacy, to make calls and write letters when important issues arise, and that's something that's really important too.
Do we have questions from anybody?
You kind of answered them as you went along, so I think we're good.
Okay. So we're sitting in a sanctuary, a house of God, our temple. And I was thinking how we're going to close tonight, somewhat along the lines of how we closed last week with 2 other members. So you're both walking down Lake Avenue and walking down your street in Middleburg Heights, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a burning bush. Oh my gosh, there's a burning bush. Just like it says in the Bible and in the Torah, there's a burning bush. And you both kind of walk over to the burning bush like somebody we know did and think, oh, I think this is my meeting with God. So God comes in to Lakewood and into Middleburg Heights and says, I'm going to say 2 words to 2 of my favorite people. And God calls you over to the burning bush, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a burning bush, and here's God.
I didn't do it.
And God looks at you 2 and says 2 words. Carry on. Carry on, please. We thank everyone for their time this evening. We thank our
Thank you
wonderful
very
guests
much.
for their time. Wish everybody a very happy holiday season. Be well. Good night.
God bless.